I'm the Associate Director of Undergraduate Programming here at LeBow, and I'm your host here tonight. So settle in, it's going to be really, really fun, and I can promise you some really inspirational speeches. Tonight we have the privilege of hearing from 4 undergraduate women. While their stories and perspectives are very different, there's a common thread woven through each. This thread is one of strength, perseverance, and inspiration. TEDx LeBow is the direct result of LeBow's commitment to the value of inclusion. In an effort to support Drexel's initiatives in fostering understanding, respect, and opportunity for a better university, LeBow has developed 6 platforms to intentionally infuse diversity into what we do. One of these platforms, which you'll see exercised very well tonight, is Student Voices. I'll take time in between each speech just to tell you guys a little bit about what we're doing as a college in D&I. But for now, let's get started and hear from our 4 speakers. So first up, we have Lotus Batten. Lotus is a junior in the LeBow College of Business studying marketing. Lotus's topic is How Deep Does It Go? My perspective on the current progress of diversity and inclusion. Please join me in welcoming Lotus.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me? So I want to talk to you about a few things today, and I want to start out with some questions. What is the true value of diversity and inclusion, and what does it really aim to do? That's what I want us to think about today. And before I give you my perspective on the current status of diversity and inclusion, I want us first to look at the definitions of diversity and inclusion and some implications they have in today's world. So please take a quick moment and look at this diversity definition. And by a show of hands, how many of you agree with the highlighted statement? Okay, and now let's look at inclusion. And by a show of hands, how many of you agree with this statement? Okay, it figures. So like many of you, I agreed with these definitions as well. And when I first learned about diversity and inclusion when coming to college, I was very excited because I thought, wow, maybe we are making some progress in today's world, and maybe we have finally gotten to a place where the world actually cares about me moving forward as a traditionally oppressed person. So now let's look at the implications in today's world. As you can probably tell, over the past couple of years, diversity and inclusion has popped up everywhere, right? And it's even extended to things like entertainment. And I think the most prevalent places where diversity and inclusion is thought about and seen is in institutions, specifically academic and workplace institutions. So what does diversity and inclusion look like currently in these environments? Well, as you can see, we live in a world where safe spaces and diversity tactics, bringing diverse peoples a seat at the table, is now prevalent. And as soon as I learned diversity and inclusion was a concept, I saw that there was a value in it for me. And in becoming a business student, I created these 3 goals that I thought diversity and inclusion could help me achieve. And with my fervor wanting to achieve these goals, I immediately got involved on campus in things that would help me achieve this. So first and foremost, I got involved in LeBow Bridge, which is a community for underrepresented students. Some of you guys are in the audience. I also used my voice as a student advocate and joined Journal 24, which is an advisory program for the provost at Drexel. And eventually I was able to represent Drexel in various different professional settings and even diversity panels talking to prospective and current students about our value of diversity and inclusion and what it looks like at Drexel. And as I started navigating the workplace more in these professional institutions, I started to learn what their value for diversity and inclusion was. And in this instance, diversity and inclusion was great at bringing different people from different backgrounds together, and ultimately, this really helped create a dynamic workforce which appealed to more students, brought more customers, increased the bottom line, and helped persevere the mission of these institutions. I had to think about it for a second. And while this does seem like an honest value for firms to hold, I did realize that there was a disparity between the value it held for me, which was self-actualization and moving forward as a minority, and for institutions, which was simply success and furthering their own mission. So I wanted to think about, well, what is the true value of D&I? We know that it's important, but why exactly is it important, and who does it impact? And ultimately, I found that diversity and inclusion in these institutions was somewhat of a trend. And these things that I showed you before, like employee resource groups and even the chief diversity officer position, were easily attained by HR and talent acquisition initiatives. And the value of diversity and inclusion and these diverse peoples only went as far as the value that they were able to drive for these institutions. And the value looks something like this: bringing different people together and moving forward towards ideas like innovation and the disruption of technology. But what about those goals that I still had of creating generational wealth, promoting community healing, and advancing my people? I know that diversity and inclusion is important today, but if we don't extend this value and achieve the values of not only these firms, but the people who make them up, we look a little something like this. Like this. Where we are still beneath our white counterparts trying to pull ourselves up, and we are still at a starting line that is placed intentionally further back. So what do we do with this? Well, there's a few things that I want to tell you today. First and foremost, I want to say that we should remember what these true definitions mean, acknowledging and accepting what makes us different and saying that it's okay, and making sure that we are welcomed and all equally treated. What does this mean? Diversity and inclusion is a doctrine. It's not a marketing trend, nor is it something that raises the bottom line. And my value in these institutions go further than the value that I'm able to put on the bottom line or the products that I'm able to sell, the students that I'm able to bring in. And it's more than bringing me a seat at the table. It's making sure that seat is comfortable. It's making sure that my voice is heard at that table and the decisions made at that table reflect the concerns that I have as a traditionally oppressed person. So what other implications does this have? Well, the fact that it's a trend right now is also a mockery to the struggles that we as diverse peoples face every day. And when we look at these top Fortune 500 companies, other doctrines like finance, marketing, and operations are key things that are already expected in their marketing and business plan to make them successful. So why isn't that the same thing as diversity and inclusion? And I can tell you with something like finance, it goes beyond a 1-hour training or an open dialogue about why finance is important to build that institution. It's something that is expected from the moment entrepreneurship happens with this company to enduring for centuries. And if this isn't enough to prove to you why diversity and inclusion should be a doctrine, it's also important, first of all, because disparities still exist. And we still operate in a classroom where terms like reverse discrimination are still published in our books. We still live in a society where we don't believe an activist black mother when she says that her son was lynched in 2018. We still live in a city where students can come from the outside thinking that they own the city and call below 40th Street N-word town because they don't think, or they're too wrapped up in their privilege to know the difference. We live in a society where a simple sneaker campaign could be provocative enough to show me yet again how much I really mean in the society. And the same brand who created that sneaker campaign was very excited to bring that message forward, but I have yet to read about the things that they did with legislature, about the things they did with legislature and helping with policing on the streets. It's important because I can't persevere by myself. And up until this point, the starting point for diversity and diverse peoples has always intentionally been placed behind. And before we even get to the starting point, we don't realize that we're running a marathon and we don't realize the ending where we want to go. And so we start sprinting in a marathon and burn ourselves halfway out. And it always seems to me that the onus of healing and persevering forward is always put on those who are traditionally oppressed. And if we continue to do this, we will never move forward as people, and these institutions will never go forward towards things like innovation and disrupting technology. And most importantly, these 3 goals I have of generational wealth, community healing, and advancing my people through knowledge and resources are still unmet. And I simply want to know, because I'm an African American woman on the brink of starting her professional career, and I want to know if I'm going to be able to achieve these goals directly aligned with diversity and inclusion, or will they be simply a benefit of other professional accolades? So going forward, no matter where you are in this society, I want you to think about how deep diversity really does go in this society. We cannot continue to ask these diverse peoples to raise their voice in supporting these institutions increasing the bottom line, bringing in other people to forward the mission. And we cannot, and at the same time, silence them with issues that continue to impact them every day. And if we do not deepen this value of diversity and inclusion, we do not solve the burdens that have been carried for years and centuries past. We only change the weights carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Lotus. As I said, I would use this moment to talk a little bit too about what we do here at Drexel, and specifically LeBow. As you can see here tonight, diversity and inclusion is really, really important in the fabric of who we are. And we offer a lot of resources to meet that. So we have one group that we started this year, our International Student Engagement Leaders. By a show of hands, who here is an international student? Okay, yeah. Huge number here at Drexel. They make up about 25% of the population, and as a college, we feel the need to meet that. And so we have this group kind of starting off where next week they're having a coffee talk for all of our international students. It aligns with International Education Week, which we celebrate starting on Monday. So if you're interested, please come out at 5:30 in this very room on Tuesday. Now, on to our next speaker. Chady Fonsen is a sophomore at the LeBow College of Business studying finance. Chady's topic is Women in Leadership, how diversity and inclusion are key to making this happen. Please join me in welcoming Chady to the stage.
Hi everyone, it's great to see such a wonderful crowd of people here on this Thursday evening. I hope you're all doing well. Before I begin, I have a little story to tell all of you. So, like many of you in the room, I'm on co-op. And probably a week before I began, my mom sat me down for a little pep talk. In her pep talk, my mom said that this was my first real job, and with every job, I need to create a goal for myself. So I sat and I thought, and I decided to create a standard goal of just trying to envision what a future in this industry would look like, and of course, to try to learn something new every day. Flash forward, a week later, I'm on my first day of co-op. And I meet my HR coordinator, I meet my manager, my coworkers, everything goes great. They give me work on my first day, and I'm learning something new every day. So, what's the catch? The catch is that on my team, every single one is male. My HR coordinator is male, as are my 2 coworkers, as is my manager. Even at a company-wide quarterly event, I saw more men sitting in the room than women. It was as if it was a middle school dance in which the men and women didn't want to interact with each other or hold hands. And all the fun and jokes aside, seeing that was a little scary. Because how can I possibly envision a future in a career when I see so little representation of women? How can I possibly envision an everyday life when the men and women at my company don't interact at this quarterly event? How can I realistically see myself advancing in a career when, in my first co-op job, there are no women on my team whom I can say, you are what I want to be in the next 10 years? A little perturbed, I decided to do some research. I wanted to know how many women are in leadership positions. And what I found shocked me, to say the least. What I found was that of the 500 CEOs that lead the companies on the Fortune 500 2018 list, just 24 are women. If that wasn't unnerving, 24/7 Wall Street did an analysis by research composed by the group Lead Better, and discovered that of the 234 companies that own 2,000 of the world's most recognized name brand, just 14 have women as their CEOs, while 9 have no women in executive boards or in executive positions. Even From a global perspective, company leadership remains unbalanced as women account for less than 25% of leadership positions. That is less than a quarter, ladies and gentlemen, and that is globally. The past decade of the 21st century has brought considerable progress in women's professional advancement in the United States. The gender wage gap reduced, sex segregation in most professions greatly declined, and the percentage of women in leadership positions has steadily increased. However, the progress that we have been making has been slow and is uneven. There continue to be significant racial and ethnic differences in terms of women's success in the workplace. And overall, women are continuing to fall short to their male counterparts in breaking into these top-level jobs. There is so much inequality in regards to women's professional success in the workplace, and that needs to be corrected. Now, we can say we can solve this issue by saying women can change this, by staying true to who they are and acting upon their innate strengths in their everyday approach to work. But to say such a thing is not just ignorant, but it is complacent. As these aforementioned obstacles are not just hills that we need to climb over, but are years' worth of systematic inequality. So, the question remains, how do we bring about a change? Inclusion. It is not just about hiring women, but including them in the work that will help support their careers. It is about ensuring that women get the critical experiences that they need so they can move forward in their careers. Making headway in our current co-ops, internships, work studies, so that more women can envision a future in an industry that supports them. When a company hires us, it should not be because we fulfill some sort of quota or they need us for a publicity photo. It should be for our work and for our talent and everything we can and will bring to the table. When I think of an inclusive environment, I think of a community. I think of bringing people together of different races, sexes, genders, religion as a whole. I think of a togetherness. That is the type of work environment we should have. Any specific effort to recruit women in leadership positions is useless if we don't have the proper work environment to support such an endeavor. We need to ensure that more women leaders are visible in their roles, so that way other women want to follow in suit. We need to start encouraging women to take part in leadership positions and volunteer and serve on exec boards, all of which will give them the visibility that they need to show the world that they are here, that they are present, and that they can and will lead. Now, for those of you who may be thinking, is this even possible? It is. SAP, a company that hires many Drexel students for co-op, wanted to increase the percentage of women that they had in their leadership roles. So they did what any other company does when they want to improve upon themselves. They set themselves a goal. They set themselves a goal of 25% of women in their leadership roles, something that they just achieved in 2017. And they're continuing to push themselves to increase that percentage into 2018. SAP changed, and we, each and every single one of us, needs to be advocates for this change. When I think back to that first day in co-op, I'm feeling so scared over how few women there were. I remind myself that even though the number of women there are few, the impact that we have on our company is immense. I remind myself that even though I'm the only female on my team, that I have the ability to create change. I remind myself that even though the men and women didn't really interact with each other at that company-wide event, that I have the ability to create an inclusive environment so that more women can take on leadership roles. So, for all the ladies in the room, jump on board to those huge projects, speak during those conference calls, and make those crucial connections, all of which will help you in your career. Make your voice known. Make sure that you are heard. And allow yourself to be the person you know you can become. And for the people that try to keep you down, push back harder. For the people that tell you that you can't do it, prove them wrong. Join those leadership positions in student organizations. Apply for those big co-ops and let your talent shine. But most importantly, be a part of a community. Because when you do, you not only help yourself, but you help the thousands of women that want to follow in your footsteps. Now, when I think back to the conversation that I had with my mother a week before co-op, now my goal is to change the face of leadership, to make it more diverse, to add more women, to create a platform for a more inclusive environment. Because by having that diversity, embracing that inclusion, do we really, truly give women the opportunity for success? Thank you.
Thank you, JD. We would now like to highlight another group we have for our students here, known as Out for LeBow. Out for LeBow is a new initiative focused on inclusivity, awareness, and pride for our LGBTQ students. As a college and as people, we're committed to ensuring that all students, faculty, and staff feel both welcome and at home here in LeBow. At this time, I ask for your patience as I help our next presenter pull up her. And now, on to our next speaker, Tamika George. Tamika is a pre-junior at the LeBow College of Business studying accounting. Tamika's topic is the discovery of my blackness. Please join me in welcoming Tamika to the stage. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tamika George. I was born in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. In 2016, I graduated Form 6 of St. Francis Girls College, which is my secondary school back home. In 2016, I was accepted and committed to attending Drexel University. And in 2016, I found out I was Black. Now, I'm from a multicultural society. I come from a place with many different races and ethnicities. I knew I was Black, but it wasn't all that I was. Back home, I was known as someone who was sort of a class clown. I was known as a high achiever that won awards every year. I was known as a tutor. I was known as someone who was kind of a student athlete because I took part in almost every sport that my school had to offer. I was someone that can connect with people just because of my taste in music or my TV shows. I was a friend. I was a sister. I was an aunt. But all of this came second to my race when I came to Drexel University, and America was no longer a place that I visited. It was now my place of residence. Now when I came to Drexel, I thought college was a learning experience. I was going to learn so much about myself, and I did. I learned that I'm not fond of cold climates. That's what it is. I learned that I'm very fond of my alone time. I learned that I can somehow be both stressed and relaxed at the same time. But then I also learned a couple harsh things. I learned that if you look at my resume next to my white peer's resume, and then us together, it can have the same thing, but I will be seen as a lesser choice. I learned that my hair, which grows out of my head this way, is seen as unprofessional. I now had to think about whenever I speak, because if I don't speak in standard English, I am now seen as unintelligent. I now had to face the fact that people in this country do not think my life is worth it because the volume of melanin in my skin makes me a threat. So now my safety was my top priority. All these things were put in place to systematically keep me down. And instead of them being my downfalls, I use them as tools to project me into opportunities. One of which being an opportunity to study abroad in Asia, in Singapore at Nanyang Technological University. Now, my experience here in America had taught me to be, aside from being unapologetically me, I was now unapologetically Black. And when I got to go to Singapore, I was awarded a diversity scholarship that covered some of my expenses. Now, when I got to America, when I got to Asia, it was a whole other ball game. You know, at first, like, I wore my hair like this, I was unapologetically Black. I was the only Black person in most friend groups. I was a star. And then I started traveling. And it was fun at first. Me and my friends, we went to Cambodia. And, you know, it was really fun. I got to see Asia, learn about the history. I got to see glow-in-the-dark underwater plankton to my birthday. It was an amazing trip. And then it was time to go back to Singapore. And I was traveling with my white friend, my Asian friend, and my Latina friend. And we get to the airport. And they ask for our passports, you know, which is customary when you're traveling. And they looked at my white friend's passport. And they looked at her. And they gave her it back. They looked at my Asian friend's passport. And they looked at her. And they gave her it back. Then they looked at my Latina friend's passport. Looked at her. And they gave her it back. And then they looked at me. They looked at my passport. They looked at me. Where are you going? Me and all three of my friends are holding the exact same ticket to go back to Singapore. To Singapore. That's where I'm going. Why are you going to Singapore? I am a student in Singapore. Do you have proof that you are a student in Singapore? I, even holding the exact same documents as my friends, had to do more. Because this guy behind the counter, he didn't see someone that was a sister. He didn't see someone that was an aunt. He didn't see a class clown. He didn't see a high achiever. He saw someone that was Black. And my Latina friend, she was hysterical. She could not believe that in the year of 2017, this was still a thing. And yet, in that moment, I had to keep calm. I had to console her. Because I was not about to be that Black girl making a scene in an airport. That was the final nail in the coffin. That's when I realized, I am Black. I am Black. I am Black. It has been a journey to get here, going from Trinidad, where I was all these things, and I just so happened to be Tamika and Black, to America, where I was Black, and I happened to be Tamika, who had all these other things. And then I got to Asia, where I was just Black. Thank you.
So access to diversity case competitions is huge to us here as a college. In fact, our first speaker, Lotus, she's a reigning national champ. Shireen's in the room as well. Philly School of Business National Diversity and Inclusion Case Competition. So next Saturday, LeBow is hosting our second annual D&I case competition sponsored by Vanguard. 18 teams from schools across the tri-state area will compete for up to $1,000 in cash money. Participating schools: Drexel, University of Penn, Haverford, Rutgers, Delaware, and we wish everyone good luck. But be on the lookout, students, for more opportunities like this. And now, for our final speaker, Nika Chug. Nika is a junior at the LeBow College of Business studying marketing and communications. Nika's topic is Age of the Brown Woman, Issues Faced by Indian Women in Today's Workplace. Please join me in welcoming Nika.
Hi everyone. Today, my talk is called Age of the Brown Woman. So what does this mean? Probably nothing to all of you, and that's okay. So what Age of the Brown Woman means to me, it's something that me and my best friend came up with because we needed something to celebrate our successes. And celebrate that our successes weren't just because of anything, and they weren't in spite of our race, but because of it. And they weren't in spite of our gender, but because of it. Whenever anything great happened in our lives, whether we were acing an exam or doing really well on a job interview, it's because it's the age of the brown woman. But why do we feel the need to do this? Why were we saying this to each other every day, making t-shirts out of it, that's a real thing, texting each other all the time, saying this is our time, this is the age of the brown woman? Why was this something that we needed? Well, to understand this huge story and everything about it, let's travel a little farther back in time. So this is me, my brother, and my sister, and we grew up in a small town in New Jersey, the children of two immigrants, two of the absolutely most amazing, strong, and great people you'll ever know. And this is, oh God, this is us. So this is us. Our childhood was really interesting because we were the children of immigrants, but we grew up in the United States. So when we were at home, our parents ate Indian food, we would go see Bollywood movies on the weekends, and we would listen to Indian music. But when I went to school, I spoke the same language as all of my friends. We would eat the same foods, we would shop at the same stores, we took the same classes. I was one of them. I didn't realize until a little later that maybe I wasn't just one of them. My parents did an amazing job of making sure that we all knew that we could achieve anything. It wasn't going to be easy. We had to work hard, we had to be really dedicated, we had to put in the time, but everything was within our grasp as long as we took the right steps. I had my doubts, but they were just normal, teenage, angsty, self-esteem stress that we all go through. I didn't realize that there was more to the story and more to me until I got to college. So I show up to Drexel, September of 2015, all bright-eyed, all bushy-tailed, all excited to be a real adult. I find my first co-op job and I think it's going to be really great. And I'm excited to make money, I'm excited to pay taxes, I'm excited to, sit in rush hour traffic, I'm excited to sit in a cubicle, I'm excited to have coffee in the morning and text my friends during lunch break, sorry guys, can't make it, got a big assignment due tomorrow. I was so ready for the grind. What I wasn't ready for was that I was going to be learning a lot more than just how to use Outlook and how to make spreadsheets. I was going to learn that there would be people out there who, when they looked at me, they didn't just see someone who was brimming with excitement and having tons of ideas and just ready to jump right in. They were going to see someone who was different. They were going to see someone who was lesser. Different and lesser because of things completely out of her control. And that's a really hard environment to work in every day. One where you're told that people like you aren't going to make it, and people like you aren't worth common pleasantries, and people like you aren't worth my time. I began to reevaluate every single part of myself and my existence. I mean, what were my strengths anymore? Did I have any strengths, and what was my path, and was this a path I wanted to go down? If I was going to keep going in this direction, how could I? When this was the world that was waiting for me. So, what long-term effects did this have on me? Well, at the time, I had no idea. I just wanted to go back to school, I wanted to see my friends, and I wanted to start over. So I took time away, I healed, I spent time with my friends and with my family. I find a new job that I think is going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be so great. It's going to make everything better. And it was. But sometimes it wasn't. I walk into work on the first day. I'm in a different city. I'm working at a different company. I'm working with a different group of people. I'm doing things that are completely different from what I did the first time. And yet, as soon as I sat down in a cubicle, it felt like I was back there again. What if it happened again? What if they judged me again? And then I felt this tremendous weight on my shoulders. And I was walking around every day carrying the weight of the world. Until one day, one of my managers says to me, "Hey, are you okay? Are you afraid?" And I was. And I was afraid because they were white. And because every single one of them at the time was white. And then I realized that I was doing to them the exact same thing that had been done to me. And that even though those people had acted out of hate and out of ignorance, and I was acting out of fear and self-preservation, it still wasn't okay. And that putting your previous experiences and your previous judgments on other people, no matter what the consequences, no matter what the circumstances, is not okay. So I step back, and I realize I have to make a decision. And I open up. I open up to this group of amazing people who care so much about each other and about the place that they work and about the work that they do, and I become a new person. And I heal, and that experience heals me from the inside out. Or so I thought. So after having the most amazing 6 months and having an amazing time, I come back to school, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed once again, like I had 3 years earlier, and I show up on the first day of class. So I'm part of this class that's really hard to get into. You have to interview, you have to do a whole shebang to get in. And I get in, and I'm selected as a leader of a team. And it's really a great honor, and I feel so great. And then I look around at the other people who are chosen as leaders of teams. And they all have something in common that I don't. Anybody guesses what it is? They're all white guys. I couldn't believe that I was back here again. I couldn't believe that not only was I the only woman, I was the only person of color, I was the only one that was both. And that's not me. I'm not going to do that because that's hard and that's a big burden to put on you. So I panic. I freak out. I'm running around this campus. I'm convinced I have to drop out of this class, drop out of Drexel, and move back home to New Jersey. I just felt like I wasn't ready. So what do you do in a situation like that, where you're freaking out and running around and having no idea what to do? Well, you call your mom. So I call my mom, and I'm crying, freaking out on the phone, saying, Mom, I can't believe they would do this to me. And she says, Mika, stop. What have they done to you? What have they said to you? Nothing. They've done nothing to me. And yet I'm convinced that they were out to get me, that they were going to hurt me, and that every day was going to be just a walk through hell. So I take a step back again, and I think, okay, Nika, this is the second time that you've done this to yourself, put yourself through this pain. Why? Where is this coming from? And I realized that all of the experiences I had up until this point were telling me that everybody around me was better than me. And that if I was put into a situation like this, I was going to fail. It's almost like the world puts this layer of self-esteem issues over everybody and then just piles them on for people of color and women of color. No wonder we're afraid to walk out the door every day. Wouldn't you be if the world was telling you that it hated you? But we don't have to let it be that way. We don't have to feel that immense pain. And I think that's where Age of the Brown Woman started. It's exclaiming to ourselves every day and reassuring ourselves that this is our time. It's our time to take back our minds and take back our inhibitions and take back everything that's been taken to us and give something back to the world and show the world what we're made of. But that's really easy to say and stand up here and tell all of you that it'll all be okay. So what have I actually learned that I can hopefully share with you, hopefully make something better? First, don't count yourself out before somebody else does. I was walking into every single room, head low, not wanting to speak up in conference calls or in meetings and not wanting to give any insights. Mind full of things I wanted to say, but afraid that I didn't fit in, that I wasn't worth it, that I wasn't worth the time. If you tell other people how to treat you by how you treat yourself, what can they say? What can they do to you? But also be prepared that they might say something, that they might do something to you. Unfortunately, we live in a world that thinks certain things about certain people, and there's not much we can do to change that. But that doesn't diminish your strengths, that doesn't diminish your contributions, that doesn't diminish what you can do. Just be prepared that it might happen to you. And finally, never stop fighting. In whatever way fighting means for you. If fighting for you means being out in the streets, protesting every weekend and knocking on doors, that's a noble fight, and I commend you. And if fighting means going to the elections and voting and doing that every single year for a candidate that you believe in, that's a noble fight, and I commend you. And if fighting for you means if you're in a position of power, instituting diverse hiring standards and hiring people below you that have come from diverse backgrounds and have diverse thought, that is a noble fight, and I commend you. And if fighting is just waking up every day and being yourself and showing everyone who you are and that you are more than what they think you are, that might be the noblest fight of all. And I think that's really what Age of the Brown Woman means. Is that there are all these things in our way, and they're not going to go anywhere. They're not leaving. But we have the strength, we have the numbers, we have the power to make a change. So, find your rallying cry, find your inner mantra, say it loud, and say it proud. Because I know mine. Thank you.
round of applause for our speakers here today. You guys, on behalf of LeBow, thank you all so much for coming. A special thank you to our D&I group mentors who helped these guys prepare. Really, it's been such a special night. I know we've all learned so much from these four women, so thank you so much. And a side note, if you're in Jackie McCurdy's university class, please come sign in.